Okay, GM, everyone. GN. Welcome today. I'm Lena, Gigahertz, Devil engineer at Celo Foundation, and today I am joined by Vasily from thirdweb. He will explain you a little bit more about what are Web3 LLMs, why do we need them, showcase the Web3 LLM by thirdweb that is called Nebula, and also we'll share a little example of how to use that. Very interesting for any kind of dev developers here and founders. And hi, Ebenezer. And yeah, very, very excited. Just a very quick intro for everybody who is new to Celo. Celo is a layer 1, emerging layer 2 on the OP stack. And if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out our forum. And we are focused on real-world use cases. We have very, very fast transaction, very cheap transaction, and we have a very strong focus on stablecoins, local stablecoins. We have more than 30 local stablecoins, and a lot of dollar-pegged stablecoins. So here for the global majority to build and for all the builders. And welcome to our workshop today. And now I already am ready to hand over. Vasily, so excited. We love thirdweb. We love you as a partner. We love you as a workshop partner. So yay. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think everybody is very excited. There are so many Web3 hackathons, AI agent hackathons running right now. And I think this workshop will be very, very useful for everybody who is working and building on AI agents. So yeah, I am handing over to you now. Welcome.
Okay, hello, everyone. My name is Vasily. I'm from thirdweb, working as a DevRel. And as Lena said, I'm going to be discussing with you today about Nebula and how this LLM can help you develop faster and better and make your experience as a developer and also as a user better when you are interacting with Web3 apps. As you know, large language models are having a huge impact across all industries. Everyone is using ChatGPT, Cloud, and other models almost on their daily basis. And Web3 is no exception. These AI agents and large language models has a lot of impact on our industry, but conventional LLMs have some trouble to actually understand blockchain and EVMs. So on today's workshop, first I'm going to just give you a small breakdown on what thirdweb is for you who doesn't know. I'm going to discuss what services we provide really quick, and then we are going to be focusing on the interesting part for this workshop, which is going to be the large language model, how it works, and I'm going to show you how it compares to other large language models, and we're going to be building a really nice script and then a Telegram bot to interact with this. So I hope you're hyped because we're about to get started. So let me actually change the controls. Give me a second. The controls are over here. And I'm going to be on the screen. So I'm going to get for granted that you are watching the same as me. So let's get to it. So what is thirdweb? We have recently changed a lot of things on our products, and we have a different product lines now. So as I said, I'm going to go really quick over the tools we offer for developers to make their development journey easier, faster, and more reliable. First thing first, we offer client SDKs to connect users to Web3. If you want to connect your user on any application, including Windows native applications, Unity, Unreal, and web applications using JavaScript and TypeScript, we offer the easiest way to connect your users to that application with in-app wallets, connection with more than 350 wallets over there, such as MetaMask or Rainbow. And we also offer account abstraction and smart accounts, which basically means you can treat a smart contract as if the smart contract were a wallet. Basically, we have more than 3 million in-app wallets created. We have sponsored more than 35 million transactions, because using the Connect, you can sponsor gas for your users. And we also have the ability to pay. Basically, if your users are not crypto natives and they don't know how to acquire Ethereum or Celo or any token, using thirdweb Pay, they can pay directly using fiat payments and get crypto in exchange directly within your application. So they don't have to deal with exchange or other third-party platforms. Then we offer a simple APIs to scale millions. Basically, our APIs allows you to have wallet management and gasless transactions. As I said, you can sponsor the gas for your users. So basically, if they want to create a transaction, they don't need to pay for it. We offer advanced analytics. Basically, if you want to know what are your users doing on your platform, how many transactions they are performing, all the activity related to your users, using thirdweb Engine, you can do that. And we also have backend wallets. Sometimes if you want to perform batch transactions, you need to be with your wallet or your private key or your ledger in order to sign transactions. But using the web engine, you can have backend wallets that can perform transactions automatically for you. Then we have end-to-end tools for smart contract development. If you want to deploy a smart contract, we offer two amazing things. First, we have modular contracts. Basically, if you want to deploy a contract and then deploy iteration of that contract, those of you who know this is kind of hard because blockchains are immutable, and once you deploy something, you cannot change it, right? We have something called upgradable smart contracts, but the implementation tends to be kind of hard. Modular contracts allow you to deploy a core contract, and then in top of that contract, you can start adding or removing functionalities as they were Lego blocks. Then we have the deployment tools. Basically, if you want to just deploy a NFT marketplace, a ERC20 token, NFT contract, you can go to our dashboard. I'm going to show you how that works because we are going to be deploying a token on the Celo network. You're going to see how easy that is. And then we have a contract library. We know that there are pro developers out there and they want to tinker and manage every single aspect of their code and optimize as most as they can the functions to consume the fewer gas possible. So we also have a contract library which is open source, and you can clone directly from GitHub, and you can start developing from scratch. And we support both Hardhat and Foundry. And we have more than 1 million total contracts deployed on mainnets, and we have more than 500K total unique mainnet deployers. Then we have Insight. I don't have that much information of Insight yet because this is quite a new product, but you can have the ability to ask questions or get information out of the blockchain about transactions, wallet, or anything actually directly through an API. We have a video on YouTube if you want for creating a Telegram bot for whale alerts, which uses Insight if you like to see it. And without further ado, as I said, I wanted to keep it as straight as possible. Let's talk about what we came today to talk. Large language models and what is Nebula. Nebula is the most powerful AI for blockchains because it's a universal blockchain interface. You have all the data sources. Nebula interacts with our own large language model called T1 that is connected with all the other services I just mentioned, Connect, Engine, contracts, and you can deploy to any EVM compatible blockchain, transfer assets to any wallet, swap any asset on any of those blockchains, and sign into any app. As I said, you can sign in your users using Connect. Why Nebula? Well, generic language models like AI and Anthropic lack knowledge about blockchains. They are really useful for certain tasks. You can ask them to code some code snippet for you. You can ask them to organize your week. But when the time comes to get real-time information out of the blockchain, they kind of suck. Let me actually show that. For example, I have ChatGPT open here, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT, what are the latest 5 blogs on Celo? And I'm going to hit enter. This is going to start the query, and it's going to give me this information, but it seems to me that this is hallucinating because it says the block number is 30 million, and this number, we can corroborate this easily by just going to the Celo block explorer. Oh, and I actually open a new tab. Okay, here. Oh, sorry. I don't know. I'm not reloading, but instead. And we have these numbers here. 3,220,000, 3,220,000. Oh, it seems that this time ChatGPT actually get the information correct, but the reason here is because it's taking directly the sources from the internet. Basically, ChatGPT did is go directly to Celo and try to scrap the information directly out of the web page. This information is not always reliable because ChatGPT tends to hallucinate time to time and asking more questions. Let me give you another example. For example, I have this contract I deployed on Celo Alfajores. I can copy this transaction hash and I'm going to ask ChatGPT, hey, give me the details of this smart contract in Celo Alfajores. Let's see if ChatGPT is capable of doing so. And it's giving me a lot of information, but I already know that this is not correct, basically because I know what this contract is. And this contract is about ERC20 token I deployed for Celo. Let's see how this is different from Nebula. As you can see, the differentiation between this large language model, in this case Nebula, and ChatGPT is that ChatGPT is going to find or search on the internet, trying to try to scrap that information directly from the web page and try to present it to you. Nebula, with the T3 model, in the other hand, is actually connected to the EVMs, so it can get real-time information out of those blockchains. So I'm going to ask the exact same questions. What are the latest 5 blocks on Celo? Let's hit enter and let's wait until this queried information. In the meantime, I'm going to show you the rest of the slides. How does Nebula work? Nebula API allows developers to build Web3 apps and games with AI. So basically, you have the information about transactions, contract states, token prices, contract source code, and events. You can ask, hey, give me information about this transaction. You can ask, what is the state of this variable? You can also ask what is the events happening on this transaction. That information is read directly from the blockchain. It goes through the T1 model that takes that information, and after taking that information is going to present you in something that is understandable. You know that most of the times a lot of the transaction information is encoded on the EVM. T1 takes that information and transforms it into something that's actually understandable for people, and then it'll allow you to have wallet execution. And this is the most important part. At some point, even if you want to create your own AI agent, let's say you want to make a clone of DeepSeek using Olama, at some point you can tinker yourself and you can start getting information yourself out of the blockchain. What makes Nebula different and so powerful is that you can start executing transactions directly within the chat interface. So you don't just get information out of the blockchain, but you can also say, oh, I want to execute this specific function on the contract I just asked for, which is crazy. I'm going to show you how it works in just a minute. So this is basically allow you to make transaction simulation, transfer tokens, deploy contracts, swap tokens, and bridge tokens. As I said, we have the ability to read live and historical blockchain data. you can read what's happening right now on the blockchain, or you can go to a really, really, really old transaction, and Nebula is going to be able to get information out of it. And as I said, we have write, which allow you to execute transactions within the chat interfaces. Let me go back to the Nebula prompt here, and I said, what are the latest 5 blocks on Celo? And it's giving me all the information: block hash, timestamp, gas use, transaction count, and etc. etc. What if I want to deploy a contract? So give me a second. I'm going to say, help me deploy ERC20 in Celo Alfajores. Actually, I'm just going to say deploy a ERC20 on Celo Alfajores. And I'm going to hit enter. In the meantime, let me check some questions on the chat.
Vasily was asking, is Nebula slower than ChatGPT?
Well, that depends on the query. The more complex the query, the more difficult it's going to be, to go through that information. The way T1 works is that if you ask any question like, act as a smart contract developer and help me to solve this specific contract snippet, on the back is going to actually be relying on ChatGPT 4.0, if I'm not mistaken, to give you that specific answer. And when you actually want to get information out of the blockchain, is going to rely on T1, or when you want to execute a transaction, is going to rely as well on T1. And it seems that is not allowing me to execute the transaction right now. Give me a second, because I know where is it? I'm going to go through one of my chats, because I think I'm not being okay. So for example, sorry about that. I said to deploy a ERC20 token, and it's not working, and it's basically because I'm not sending the prompt correctly. But just to show you how it works, if you want to execute a function, it's going to send you an unsigned transaction, and then if you click on execute transaction, this is going to allow you to trigger your MetaMask or the wallet you are using and trigger that transaction right away. The reason this is also kind of not working here is because, remember, this is just a chat interface. This nebula.thirdweb.com is just a way for you to just tinker, ask questions like, what is the gas cost of X, or what is the price of Ethereum, etc., etc. But if you want to actually implement this, you are going to be relying on the API, and the API is the one we are going to be using right now on the example I'm going to code along with you. By the way, right now Nebula is on early access. So if you want to get preferential early access, please go to thirdweb.com/nebula and join the waitlist. I'm going to request your team today to take a look to their request we get specifically today, February 5, and give you preferential early access to the Nebula waitlist. So please be sure to sign to the waitlist as soon as possible. With that said, I'm going to show you how to actually implement this on the code. So for
before we get into the practical example, can we answer like 2 more questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Let's get to it.
So there's one question that's is asked, how can I start using this? Is it autonomous DOC? I'm not sure. Do you understand that question? I'm not.
I'm not familiar with DOC.
Yeah, maybe you can expand that question a bit.
The way you can start using this is, as I said, joining the waitlist. Once you have access, you are going to have on your thirdweb dashboard, secret API key, and using that API key, you can directly interact with this chat interface I just showed you, or with the API I'm about to show.
And also we will share the GitHub with all the code example chat here. So you can also like test it out later as soon as you got access. Obviously to test all of that, you need the access and we will make sure that you get it. Please also just reach out to Vasily in case you didn't get access yet. This is his Twitter, so go for it.
Yeah, you can always reach me.
And then also, hi Jordan, great to see you here. And then also one other question is, are we allowed to use this in the Safe Hackathon? You're allowed to use everything in the Safe Hackathon. I think it's very important to understand like the Safe Hackathon is for you to like build the best agent that you can. And if Nebula is the best tool for that, you should definitely use that. Like if you feel like that's the tool that you're most comfortable with and that you will be able to build the best agent with, 100%. And we will also like, but yeah, so yeah, obviously it's like it's very much allowed to use this. Where can you get the docs for implementation?
The docs.
Yeah,
the docs actually already exist. Let me actually share again my screen. If you go to the API reference, which is here, portal.thirdweb.com/nebula, the API reference, the easiest ways to get here is to just type on your browser thirdweb Nebula API reference, and the first link is going to be the one you are going to select, and here you are going to have all the documentation on how you can start using this.
Okay, amazing. I think that is all the questions, so you can go into the coding example.
Yep.
Just gonna jump in.
And by the way, on the meantime, you were answering questions. I was kind of freaked out. The reason it didn't allow me to actually execute the transaction to deploy. I opened a new chat and I just said deploy a ERC20 token, and it's actually already allowing me. It's going to default select some information for me because this is kind of generic. But as I said, this is going to return you an unsigned transaction. And if I click execute transaction, this should trigger my MetaMask and allow me directly from the chat interface after I asked deploy this to deploy a ERC20 token on the Celo Alfajores blockchain. So yeah, I think it's working and the transaction was sent, and I think that I can actually go here and check it on the Block Explorer. And yes, as you can see, I just deployed a ERC20 token out of the blue by just asking on the chat interface, and the transaction was confirmed successfully. So yeah, that was working. I think the reason for me it didn't work before is because I have a lot of chats here, and I have a really convoluted scheme. So please be sure to open new chats when you want to do this stuff, because it's going to freak out sometimes. But again, the reason is doing this because this is just for testing purposes. You are expected to start tinkering here, testing, making queries, also making research if you want to research some transactions. But as developers, if you want to actually implement this, you will like to use the API reference that I showed you before. And that's the one we are going to be focusing right now. So if you are okay with that, I can just get straight on the coding section. And I think that Lena is not here, but I'm going to forget that she said yes.
No. Yes. Let's go. Let's get.
Yeah, because I was asking you actually. It was not rhetorical.
No, I was just on Twitter commenting and stuff on this live too.
Okay.
No, but so cool. I'm so excited. It's so cool that you can just launch a token through Nebula chat interface. I mean, that's
so. For this example, first we are going to take a look to the API documentation for you to understand what are the requisites you need to make this work. And we are going to have the ability to, same as we did here on this chat interface, we are going to be able to ask any question on any EVM compatible blockchain about transactions, blocks, contracts, wallet addresses, etc., etc. And for this workshop, what I'm going to do is integrating this small script with a Telegram bot. So you're going to see a possible application. For example, if you have an NFT marketplace and you want to give personalized support to your customers, they can contact you through this Telegram bot, and the bot is going to have real-time context out of the blockchain. You can allow them to interact. So instead of, my transaction is not happening, no, I didn't receive this, as the bot is going to have direct connection with Nebula, and Nebula has direct connection with the blockchain, you are going to be able to provide specialized support. So that this is kind of the theme for this workshop. Going more on the question someone asked before about if this is going to slow the system. Again, thinking about it more carefully, the answer is yesn't, because it all depends on the computational power. Right now, this is on early access and we are on the alpha stage. Some queries may take some time to develop and others are going to be really fast. But I think with time, with more computational power we add to the equation, the queries are going to be faster and faster. So yeah, that's kind of a follow-up on that question someone asked before. So let's get started with the API reference. The things you need to make this work and to interact with this on your code is first the base URL. In this case, is nebula-api.thirdweb.com. You are going to need the authentication. As I said, you need a secret key. You are going to get this if you go to thirdweb.com and you create an account with us. You can sign in with your wallet or any other preferred sign-in option. I'm going to actually use my wallet and it's signing me automatically. And on your projects, you can add a new project, and inside of your project, under the settings, you are going to have the access to your API key. In this case, is hidden for security purposes, and it's going to keep hidden always. But you need to copy this the first time you create a new project. So once you have access to the early access to Nebula, and using this secret key, you're going to be able to start interacting with the API. And then sending requests or asking questions to Nebula is actually pretty easy. Basically, you just need to send post requests to the API, and these post requests are going to allow you to get information out of the blockchain. In this case, these post requests we have under the documentation as example says send 0.0001 ETH to Sepolia to Vitalik.eth. To make that happen, we need to have just two things. First, a session. The session is going to be really important because if you want the agent to keep context out of the chats, you need to ask the questions on the same session. So it's going to remember what you asked before. So you need to create a session. You can add context filters. If you want to be more specific on what you want to ask, you can filter this based on chain IDs or wallet addresses. And it's not here on the documentation, but you can also add a context filter for the contract address. So if you want your queries to be contained into a specific smart contract wallet or chain, you can add these on the context filters. And then we have the execute configuration, and this is the way you create the configuration to execute transactions. The execute part, I'm not sure if we are going to have enough bandwidth to cover today, but I'm going to show you a demo anyway at the end. So as you can see, we have this post request. The first one is to create a session. You need the secret key, as I mentioned before, and this is some overview on how this post request is going to work. So for this workshop and for making things easier for everyone, what I did is I have a template code over here. I'm using the library node fetch. I just declared the API base URL, the same I show you here on the documentation, and I need to add my secret key. Today, I'm going to show my secret key in public. The reason is because this project I'm going to use is just for testing purposes. It doesn't have access to any of the important stuff like assets or anything. The reason I'm saying this to you today is that what I'm going to do is a really bad practice, like hard coding the API keys directly on the code, but this is just for showcasing purposes. Each time you are going to be using sensitive information such as private keys or API keys, be sure to encrypt this information before. But as I said, this is a workshop and this is something that I don't care to be leaked because I don't have any asset here. So I'm going to just copy and paste my API key here anyway. And I have created some functions here. So we are going to be creating just 3 simple functions. The first is going to be the API request function. This function is going to be a general one. The main purpose is that this API request is going to handle both the create session, or the chats. And then we have 2 other functions called create session. This is going to allow me to have that session's ID I just talked about, and we are going to have the ability to ask any question to the API. So for that, let's get to it. I'm going to be as easy as fast as possible, but at least I wanted to show you some coding here, right? So I'm going to add here a response. This response is going to fetch the base URL, nebulaapi.thirdweb.com, and is going to interact with an endpoint. The endpoints you are going to be interacted are, let me show you, session, and what is the other one? List execute transaction. There is another endpoint called send message. Yeah. And the endpoint for sending messages is called chat. So basically, we are going to be creating another endpoint for session and another one for chat. So it's going to interact with this base URL and using this endpoint. Let me actually close this. And inside of here, we are going to do something really basic on JavaScript and node fetch, which is going to be sending the method. The method is going to be always post, but it's a good practice to send the method anyways. At some point, we might have a get method. We are going to send the headers. The content type is going to be application.json. I'm allowing the GitHub Copilot extension to fill up some information for me. And then we need to declare the X secret key. So I'm going to say that the secret key I want to use to make this is going to be this one I just declared over here. Then I need to declare the body of the request. As this is a JSON object, is going to be object.keys.body. I'm going to check if there is some length. I mean, if the response is not empty. If the response is not empty, then I'm going to transform that into a JSON file. And if not, I'm just going to leave that the response as blank. Then I want to check if the actual response from the Nebula API was correct. I'm allowing right now ChatGPT to help me over, but I say if the response is not okay, please throw me an error. And finally, I'm going to say return response.json. And actually, this is it. This is the only things you need to create the basic interaction, because using this API request, right now we can start interacting with the other endpoints. So let me show you, for example, how we could create a session over here. So I'm going to say const response equals to away API request. I'm going to say the session is going to be a post method, and I'm going to send the title. The title in this case is Celo workshop query. What's important about this title is that this title over here is going to be the same that is going to be appearing over here on the chat interface. Because yes, each time you interact with the API and create a new chat, that chat is going to also appear on this interface, and the title is going to be the defining point of what that session was about. As you can see, I already have one here called Celo workshop query because I was creating this script before this workshop. So each time you interact with this script, and the title you send here as parameter is going to be the one which is going to determine what is going to be the session about. In this case, the session is about the Celo workshop query. I'm going to get the session ID and I'm going to return that session ID. The reason I'm returning that session ID is because each time I ask a new question, I'm going to send that session ID as parameter in order for the chat to be able to understand the context and remember all the things we already said. Let me create the next function, which is going to be ask Nebula. In this case, we are going to send as parameter the chain ID and the session ID. So I'm going to say The message is going to be, give me the details of the contract. I'm going to send a contract address on the chain, and I'm going to send the chain ID. For this workshop, we are going to be sending the information of a contract address deployed on the Celo Alfajores network. And of course, I'm going to be sending the Alfajores chain ID. And I'm going to create a request body over here. This request body is going to send the message. I'm going to select the session ID. The session ID is the one I'm sending as parameter, which is going to be created by this create session. I'm sending some context filters. First, we have the chain IDs. As I said, when we show the documentation, is that you can filter this within different chains. So if you are going to do some sort of research, or you want to just have the scope of your Web3 application to your specific blockchain, you can filter that directly here. And we have other filter called contract addresses, and you can filter to a specific contract address. And the contract address I want to show is the one I'm putting here, but it seems that I'm missing that input parameter. So I'm going to say that contract address is going to be also a parameter. And as easy as that, I think we have it, because right now we have the ability to ask the question to the application. So I just need to create a response out of this. So let me show you how to do it. I'm going to say, after this request body, const response await. We are going to be using the same function we just created to make the general request to the API. We are going to be interacting with the chat endpoint. It's going to be a post method, and we are going to send this request body I'm sending over, which I have here, the body. And I can just make a return of the response.message. And as this is that, we have everything we need to interact with the API. This is going to be the message we are going to be asking. So I created a main function, and the main function has the session ID, and I'm setting up the chain ID. For those of you who know this, chain ID 1 is for the Ethereum mainnet. So I actually need to change this to the Alfajores chain ID. So I have here some point this chain ID. Let me copy and paste this to be the correct one. And I'm going to say response as Nebula. I'm going to be sending the chain ID, the session ID, but I'm not sending the contract address. So I'm going to say const contract address, and I'm going to be sending a string over here. And let me go back to my browser, and over here on my dashboard, I have this contract I deployed, my Celo token. So I'm going to copy this address, go back to my code, and paste it over here. And I'm going to send this as input address to this function. So let me recap before we execute this. We have the base URL, the secret key. This is the one we need in order to have access to the API. I created a basic function which is able to handle any type of request, both sessions or chats. And then I created two different functions, one to create a session and another one to handle all the chat inquiries the user may have. For this specific example, I just ask, give me the details of the contract address I'm sending as parameter on the chain, and the chain ID I'm sending as parameter. In this case, we are using Celo Alfajores, sorry, with this chain ID and this contract address. So let me actually go back to my terminal, and let me, where is it? I'm going to execute this here. So once this is done, I'm going to say, the name is basic query. So I'm going to say node basic query.mjs. This is going to give me the query, give me the details of the contract undefined on chain 1, but it seems that it's not taking the contract and it's not actually allowing me to take this. It seems that I didn't save this file. Oh, the reason is because I'm using basic query instead of the template one we are working with. So let me actually clear my terminal and execute the correct one. The correct one is under templates and template basic query.mjs. And in this case, it's going to send that request to the API and it should return to me with the information. So let's see if that's true. Let's wait a second. And again, going again to that question about how fast the model is, depends a lot on how busy the requests are. But as you can see, it didn't take that much. One of the reasons that it also feels that this takes too much to get me an answer is because the information, as you can see, is really, really long. We have a way on the API to stream this information. So instead of just giving you the entire chunk of the response, it's going to actually give you letter by letter as you are used on other large language models. Let me actually hide my camera for a second for you to be able to see the entire terminal. And as you can see, it's telling me over. The contract address I sent you was deployed on the alfajores, is a ERC20 token, and it has these access control, standard functionalities, fields, unique capabilities, initialization parameters, etc., etc. As you can see, interacting with the API is quite easy because we just need to create two simple functions, one to create a session, another one to ask the actual request, and another general one I just made just to make my life easier. And as easy as that, right now we can start asking any question to the API. So basically, instead of just asking, give me the details of this contract, I can just remove this and start asking anything like what are the latest 5 logs, what are the details of this transaction, etc., etc. This is pretty powerful because, as you saw, with just a simple 64 lines of code script, we were able to get real-time information out of the blockchain. This right now is just showing you on a terminal because this is just for demoing purposes. We are on a workshop, but imagine how you can apply this into an actual user interface, such as your front-end application. And I said imagine as a rhetorical question because at the end I'm going to demo you how this actually works on a Web3 app. But as I said, I don't want to leave you just at this point. Let's integrate this into a Telegram bot. So for that, I have this other template I created before, which is a basic Telegram bot, which basically just, ask you to select the chain you want to search for and ask you to interact with a contract address, but it doesn't do anything at all. I'm going to showcase you. But if this is your first time creating a Telegram bot, I'm going to show you how you can create one. So let me open my Telegram. Sorry if the interface is kind of small here. I make the zoom as big as possible on the Telegram application, but it seems not allowing me to make this more bigger. And on the meantime, I think we have a question.
Yeah. So we have, I think there's two questions, but one is for now. Cool. Odysseus says, this is interesting question. Some user will be interacting with the system and may not need me to save the data. Anyways, I can use the API without it saving data in chats, maybe for privacy. I think maybe this is a bit like, do you already have some kind of memory file or a way to store a user session or some examples for how that could look like, or what would you suggest?
That's actually an amazing question. The answer is not for now because we are on the alpha access and we want to see what amazing things you are able to build with this. So right now, all the queries you make are going to actually appear directly on the dashboard I show you. But you're right, privacy is really important. And I'm sure that on the roadmap, at some point, we are at the ability for your users to make anonymous requests, without the need to you to actually get access to that conversations?
I think you should look into Nillion. I think they already have these like private sessions. So maybe that would be a good combination of like hosting your session that you have with Nebula in Nillion, because they have this like secret requests.
Okay, that's a really nice suggestion, actually. As I said, yes, we are going to add that privacy filters on the near future,
Yeah.
but right now, as this is on alpha state and more meant for developers to build stuff, all the queries and all the chats are going to appear on that interface. Thanks for that question. Can this
And
be
then
made?
the second question is, can I also call contract deployment via API? Do I send the private keys?
No.
Or no?
We have two options. The first option for doing this is that if you want to use our SDK, what our SDK is going to do is you can directly within the SDK execute a transaction. And if you are using a private key using the SDK, the private key is going to be used to sign that transaction and just send it over. But the private key is never going to be sent within the information of the transaction. Or then you have option number two, which is when you ask Nebula to execute a question, what Nebula is going to actually do is return to you with an unsigned transaction. You can take that unsigned transaction and using a front-end SDK or libraries such as Web3.js. I highly recommend you not and use thirdweb one because it's easier. But when you get that unsigned transaction, you can use the thirdweb SDK to trigger your MetaMask or the wallet you have connected, and you sign the transaction directly within MetaMask. So at no point, either Nebula or the SDK have access to the private keys because they are going to remain directly on your connected wallet. And finally, and the third option that is my actually favorite is that you can use smart accounts. So basically, your users can sign into your application using their email address. When they enter using their email address, a new smart contract acting as a wallet is going to be created on their behalf, and you can allow them to interact and send these transactions without even needing to pay gas for it, because you can sponsor those transactions and they are going to have these smart wallets which are going to be attached or linked to the email address you used. So you have these three options. As I said, if you are developing and using EMB files, which I don't recommend, you can have the private key just to sign the transaction directly. The private key is not going to be sent on the information. The second one is to handle that unsigned transaction on the front end and allow the user to sign using their preferred wallet. And the third option is to use account abstraction and smart wallets to allow the users to sign in using a social login method, such as Google or Facebook or Apple, and allow them to execute the transaction within that context. That was a really nice question, actually.
Yeah, I think it's great. Also, like, you can find everything that Vasily just shared in the thirdweb docs. Like, you can find, if you look up the SDKs, they have like a TypeScript SDK. Which other languages do you have? You have like your
TypeScript
key
SDK,
language.
C#
Yeah.
for native Windows applications,
Yeah.
Unity, and Unreal Engine.
Okay. Yeah. So and then also you can find everything around smart accounts on thirdweb, and like they have great documentation, so everything you needed is in the tools. Then we have another question: can this be made to do autonomous actions like buy tokens for users?
100%. The point is the way you want to. The point here is what's the way you want to set this up. As you saw, let me actually put my screen again on the front. We did this directly within a simple JavaScript script that was executed from the terminal, but you can make this to be automated. So, for example, if your users have an inquiry and you have a specific set of steps your users are going to follow, at some point you want, let's say on step number 5, to 7 or 10 consecutive transactions to be executed after the user finished that workflow, you can 100% set that up by just using these endpoints: chat, execute, and session. If we don't have more questions, I can show you how to integrate this into a Telegram bot. So yeah, let's get to it. So if you haven't used a Telegram bot before, you need to go to the search bar on Telegram and look for bot father. Bot father is really cool because it allows you to create any bot, and the steps are quite easy to do. So I'm just going to click new bot. This is going to ask me, all right, new bot is going to be created. I'm going to remove my cameras for you to see this properly. New bot, how are you going to call it? Please choose a name for your bot. I'm going to say this bot is going to be called Celo Workshop thirdweb. And it seems the name must end on bot, so I'm going to copy the exact same name I just said and finish with bot at the end. And as you can see, as it says that, I already have it. It's telling me that my bot is in Telegram-Celo Workshop thirdweb bot, and it's giving me this information. Use this token to access the HTTP API. So basically, I just need to copy and paste this on my code, and as it says that, I can access to this bot. Sorry. So as I don't want to make this really long, as I did before, I have some templates here, so I'm going to show you. Remember, all of these templates are going to be on the GitHub repo Lena already shared, and is going to be also attached on the description of this video. So let me show you. I have this basic Telegram bot, and I have this token. I'm using another token because I created another bot for this session before. So let me show you how this actually works. So let me go to my terminal. Let me clear this, and I'm going to say node 1 Telegram bot base. This is going to start running my bot, so I can go to the actual bot. Let me clear the chat history, and I'm going to say start. And this is going to just ask me, welcome to the bot. Please select the chain. I have Ethereum, Sefolia, and Alfajores. I select Alfajores, and it says you selected the Alfajores. Please enter the contract address. I'm going just to enter gibberish here and click enter. And at this point, the only thing that this bot does is returning me or answering me with the exact same I just said. What we are going to do now is take this basic bot functionality and integrate it directly with the Nebula API. So for that, I have this second Telegram bot template I have created. And the only thing I did here is taking the code from this section, the basic API request, create session, and ask Nebula. And I introduced that directly within this bot. And I have some to-dos here, and this is the part we are going to be adding that functionality, and you're going to see at first hand how you might add or do this on your own Telegram applications. So let me actually go to it. So first and first, I need to enforce the states of the bot to not be just for waiting for contract, but also have the session ID. The session ID is going to be from Nebula, of course, and to know if the conversation is active. So let me actually do that. I'm going to replace these user states, and I'm going to say the chain, the selected chain, the waiting for contract, session ID, contract address, and the conversation is active. My second to do is to ignore any commands. So for example, if I'm asking you to give me a contract address and you enter another command such as start, you need to ignore those commands. So I'm going to just uncomment this, and I'm going to say, if the message comes with this symbol, please ignore it and return to the user saying, please start by sending a start. I mean, basically it's going to reset the chat for them. And then we have two cases here. The case number one is waiting for the contract address. Once the user selected the chain they want to use, we are going to request them to enter the contract address, and the contract address here is going to be handled by asking or requesting this information directly from the Ask Nebula. And of course, we are going to create a session for it. And the scenario number 2, which is here, is that the user already input the information and is just waiting for us to make follow-up questions to the exact same contract. So let's do that. I'm going to uncomment this. And here I'm going to actually be doing some coding. So let me check on my code here. Where is it? Okay, here's it, waiting for the contract address. So basically, I'm going to say here, const contract address is going to be equal to message.text, and I'm going to use the word trim here because sometimes the information is going to be really large. I'm going to show you a differentiation between a bad prompt and a really good prompt. And inside of this, I'm going to say, please create me a new session ID using the session ID we used before. And it seems that it's telling me that this needs to be an asynchronous function. And where is it? Give me a second. Yeah, message here, as we are interacting with an API right now, must be an async function, otherwise it's not going to work. So I think, and I think this is going to be happy with me now. Yes, it's not giving me any error. So I'm going to create a new session ID, and I'm going to change the state of the session ID equal to the session ID. Then I'm going to convert the chain ID to the corresponding number. So what I'm going to do is say chain mapping state.chain, and otherwise, if we don't have any chain, it's going to default to the Ethereum mainnet. The way this is working is that if you check the code, we have these chain mappings. So I have Ethereum, Sefolia, and Alfajores. And when the prompt is made, is going to give you this Ethereum, Sefolia, and Alfajores. But what we actually need is the ID. So basically, it's going to map that input to the corresponding ID to make this happen properly. Then let me go to the next step. Then I'm going to create a new response. So I'm going to say here I'm going to ask Nebula. So I'm going to say, create a response. I'm going to ask Nebula. I'm going to be sending the chain ID, the one I just get, the session ID, and the contract address I just sent as input parameter. Those inputs, remember, are going to come directly within this bot because I'm asking directly the chain and the contract address. So it's going to use that information and it's going to ask Nebula to get that information based on that. And again, remember what we did before. Here we have the prompt. Give me the details of this contract, the contract address, and the chain ID. And finally, once we have this, here, where is it? Here. I kind of lost it, sorry. It is here. Yeah, it's here. Once I have the response, I can directly make the conversation status to true. This is going to be important so the user understand that something is actually happening on the behind. Like I sent something and the bot is not answering me. So setting this to conversation active is going to allow the user to understand the information is being queried. And finally, I'm going to send the next state. So I'm going to say bot.sendMessage, the chat ID, and the response from Nebula. And I'm going to parse the information as Markdown because all the responses from the API comes as Markdown. For the next step, I don't want to make this as boring or long. So what I'm going to actually do is explain you what this code does, but I'm going to just copy and paste that from the existing code I already prepared for this session. So here I have the case number 2. Once the conversation is happening and the user make following, queries, what's going to happen? So I'm going to say the query is going to be the message the user sends, I'm going to have another response message. So I'm going to say response message is equal to handle message. By the way, I just show you on the template this ask Nebula, but I actually, for this specific case, I created another function called handle message, which is the exact same, but in ask Nebula, we send the message directly here, and in handle message, we send the query as an input parameter. That's the only differentiation. So here I say I'm going to send the query, the state of the session ID, the chain ID, and the contract address. Remember, these variables are marked as state because these are the ones I'm sending directly from here. Finally, I'm going to send a message with the chain ID, the response message, and I'm going to again parse the response as markdown. And as this is that, I should be able to get the exact same results, but right now within a Telegram bot. So let me actually remove this, and I'm going to run this. So I'm going to say note Telegram bot. The Telegram is going to be running again. So let me go back to Telegram. Let me clear the chat history. I'm going to start yet again. I'm going to select alfajores as the chain. I'm going to input the contract address. I'm going to select the one I deployed for alfajores. I'm going to paste it over here. This is going to telling me creating session and fetching data. So I just need to wait right now until the API to get me that response. So let's wait a second. I'm going to show you something interesting on the meantime is that, as I said, right now it's taking some time because it's going to give you the entire chunk of code at once. But here on the API reference, we have something called a stream. If you want to stream the information, you can enable the chat to start giving you letter by letter on when it is starting to create the response for you. If not, it's going to take some time, as I've shown you here, because it's going to give you the entire response at once. And as you can see here, I'm asking here the session ID and this big long query. If you paid attention to what I did here, is that we have been, tinkering with the file name to Telegram Nebula, but I actually executed 3. The reason I did this, it was on purpose, and it was because here, as I said, we just sent to Nebula this question. Where is it? On the query, let me ask Nebula. I directly ask, give me the details of the contract address, and the chain ID. But this is maybe too general, like people are not going to be, too specific when they interact with your application, but you as the developer can be as specific as you could. So on this file 3, is the exact same I just show you, but the only differentiation is that the message is this long chunk of information. So basically, I can refine my queries as much as I want. So for example, I say, give me the details of the contract and provide a structured list of the functions available in the smart contract deployed and the address and the chain. The response must strictly follow this format. And I asking the API agent to specifically give me this contract details format, read-only functions, and writable functions. The exact same way I did this for this query, you can do it when you are developing your applications, and you can make the API agent, the AI agent, to give you the exact responses you want, especially if you want to have consistency. If I go to ChatGPT or to the Nebula interface over here and I ask 20 questions, the actual information is going to be the same, but maybe the use of language here might be different. Though, if you want to have consistent answers on your application, what you can do is actually make this request and be really specific with the outputs you want to get. And it seems that it actually worked. So after sending the information is going to give me the contract details. The name is Celo token, the chain ID, and it's going to give me the exact same information I showed you before with the format I requested. It's giving me the read-only functions with all the read-only functions, the writable functions, and all the information I requested using this exact same format. What's cool about this is that I can just start asking more questions about it, like what is the supply? And this is going to again trigger Nebula as the question. Take a look to this contract deployed on the Celo Alfajores network and give me that response. This was, let me open, give me a second. Where is it? Here. This was really, really cool because I really showed you really quick. I didn't want this workshop to be too long, how you can integrate the API directly into an application such as a Telegram bot. And as you saw, doing that was actually quite easy. I just created the bot, used the bot ID, the bot father gave me, use that on my code and just ask the same functions I just showed you to get that information directly out of Nebula. Before we go, as we are already a little bit ahead of time, I want to show you a final use case. It's going to take me like just 2 or 3 minutes. So if you're up to it, I'm ready to show that. So we have enough time, Lena, to do that. You are muted, by the way.
I just it. So 100% everybody who has questions already put them in the chat. So as soon as Vasily is done with the presentation, we can like. I also still have like 3 questions. So like I'm fine. Like I feel like you're here, you're the expert, so let's use your information while we can. So like yeah, everybody feel free to like drop in every question. Also, if you're watching through Twitter, you can also leave any questions there, and I will have them show up here. Okay, let me give you the stage again.
Nice. So, as I said, I'm going to show you another use case of this. The reason I'm not going to show you this specifically on the coding section because it requires a lot more setup. And if I do so, this workshop would end up being like 2-hour workshop. Maybe we can do one on the future on which I can spend like step by step coding everything from scratch with you. But as this is more like showcasing purposes, we don't have enough time to actually go through how you can set up these to do the function execution. But I want to show you how that would work on your application. So let me share my screen again. I'm here, and here I have this AI Blockchain Explorer powered by Nebula. By the way, if you want to learn how to build this from scratch, we have a tutorial on YouTube. Our latest video to the date is how to build this from scratch. So basically, you can add any contract address here on a chain. For this case, I'm going to use this contract I deployed on Cepholia. Sorry, I'm not using Alfajores in this case because this was already deployed. I just want to show you how this might work. So I'm going to ask, here is asking the exact same question as I asked here. It's going to give me all the details of this contract. But what's important here is I want to show you how you can execute the functions directly within the chat interface. So basically in this application, we build this blockchain explorer with the ability for you to get information out of any transaction, any block or any contract. But it seems that it's taking a little bit to the interface to give me the information. Okay, it did. So it's giving me the information about this, right? So it seems that I have this contract called number. I can have this basic contract. This basic contract basically is just, to store the state variable of a number. But we have this function called add number, which is supposed to increase the value of the number by 2. So if I want, for example, to apply this to my Telegram bot, to my web application, I can add something on the chat such as saying execute and the function name. I'm going to remove myself from the screen because I want to show that a new button should be appear here, but I think that my name is actually not allowing. maybe if I make it bigger, okay, yeah. If I make it bigger, as you can see, if I add execute, I add a new button here, and I've clicked on execute. Let me be sure that I am on the correct network, and I've clicked here. This is going to trigger Nebula to send the transaction. This is going to return to me with an unsigned transaction, and if everything goes fine, this should be able to trigger that transaction on my MetaMask. So let's wait a little bit. On the meantime, we can check some questions if you like. Oh, it seems that it actually did. So it's asking me to confirm the transaction. So I'm going to send that transaction. I can actually check this directly into my MetaMask. It's pending. Let's give it a second or two. Just wait a little bit. On the meantime, okay, and it's saying that the transaction was sent successfully and is returning me with the transaction hash. Again, what's powerful about this is that I'm not actually like declaring any function like, you know, when you interact with any Web3 SDK, you need to always get the ABI and get the input parameters of the function and actually, send that on a specific way. Here, I just ask directly on the chat, execute the function, and this is automatically triggering that transaction for me and allowing me to sign it and make the transaction happen with this transaction hash. And this is the actual powerful part of Nebula, that first, you can, yes, get information out of any contract transaction on any EVM compatible blockchain. Of course, we support Celo, but if you want to allow your users to execute transactions directly within those interfaces, you can also do that. And that was it. And that was the last part I wanted to show you. So we can jump to the questions if you like.
Amazing. Thank you so much. First of all, I think this is such a useful tool. We already talked a little bit about use cases, I think, before, about like what that can mean for dev developers, right? Like as a developer, you can check your weekly stats on like top transaction volumes, and so on, with just a Telegram chat. So that would be a great hackathon project to build that. And I think there's already the templates, like obviously.
Yeah, remember the code for this
yeah.
template is on the GitHub repo, Lena shared. So if you want to use it, once you have early access, feel free to use it. I put it as MIT license, if I'm not mistaken. So it's open source. You can 100% freely use this template.
Amazing. And then the other use case was also as like, for example, customer support, right? So you can just create a Telegram bot for all your users and like get transaction status and so on. So very, very cool. What other use cases would you tell people who are still looking for an idea for a hackathon, for example?
Yeah. Another use case is research, especially if you are interested on a smart contract auditing and you want to actually understand how transactions work all together. Being able to ask questions in natural language to the blockchain on a specific transaction, a smart contract, is going to be really useful if you are into a smart contract auditing. That's one use case. Second use case is that you can change the way users interact with Web3. One of the main reasons our industry haven't get massive adoption is because for us crypto degens, it's really interesting to set up a MetaMask and tinker with our private keys and having our ledger, etc. But if you ask your auntie or your grandma to do so, they are going to be lost as fast as this.
Yeah.
Allowing people to interact with this application, with these Web3 apps, not with complex managing, mnemonic phrases, private keys, or wallets, but just with the chat, is going to be a game changer. So basically, you want to sell a product and you want the users to be able to pay you with a crypto asset. Instead of allowing your marketplace to be paid using regular transactions, you can interact a chat interface. Your users tell you what they want to buy, they trigger a transaction. You can use one of our services, for example, the smart accounts. You can sponsor the gas for them, and they are going to have a crypto assets on their hands, and they don't even know need to create a wallet or even pay for the gas. And you can enable all of this just within chat interfaces. And the final one, sorry, I'm ranting here, but the final and my favorite application for developers here is creating batch workflows. Again, as I said, when you regularly want to interact with a smart contract function using SDK, you need to have always the contract API, all the input parameters, and sometimes you need to encode that information. For example, if you want to send a number, Solidity compiler is going to complain with you because it needs to be a big int if you send it from the front end, for example. You can create these batch transaction workflows within just chat interface. So for example, if you are a developer and you want to make a workflow to deploy a token, mint those tokens, and then send those tokens to another wallet, instead of going through all the process of coding that, you can just create a custom workflow on Nebula that do that automatically for you. And that's the powerful part as well.
AI agents as the new websites, right? I think especially for Web2 users to interact with Web3, it makes so much more sense to use an agent compared to building a really bad user experience. So I really love that. One last thing that I had to think about when you talked about the auditing is like, even for somebody who like, I think we all sometimes are not cautious enough when we interact with any kind of website. We're like, yeah, sure, connect my wallet. And like one of the ideas is also just like get the contract from that site and just like put it into that chat and say like, hey, is it safe to connect my my wallet to that contract and so on, right? So onto that website. So that would
take in consideration something important.
Yeah.
Right now, when you want to actually explore what's happening under the hood on any transaction, what do? You go to a block explorer and you need to face all the information of the transaction. And most of the times that information is API encoded, right? And you need to first decode that information. And there, in my opinion, there is a lot of missing pieces that for newcomers are really hard to scratch. Again, you need to go to a third party, in this case, a block explorer. If you want to integrate this directly within your applications, your users don't need to go to a block explorer. They can have direct information out of your contracts, out of your marketplace, out of your DeFi app directly within the application. They don't need to go to a block explorer and face encoded API function calls. You can translate that with Nebula and show them on regular normal text. They will understand,
Imagine how amazing it would be like if, for example, in MetaMask, when they show you like an error message and you're like, I have no idea what that means. Or like,
Exactly.
anyways, it would like be a natural language text and like you can like just, even when you sign a transaction, sometimes like there's like some information and you're like, sure, I'm just gonna sign it because what will I read out of that? And like to create like it like already like wallet experience so much better
Exactly.
by
Because
presenting
at the
that
end of the line, I
information
think that GigaChat developers, the ones who like to optimize their functions to the limit to spend the fewer gas possible, they are going to prefer keep interacting with Block Explorer and going directly through the EVM interface. But we're talking more about mass adoption. If we want more people to interact with this, we need to make the user experience as easy as and straightforward as possible. It's kind of weird that our applications or current landscape always require you to open third parties to do anything. You want to buy my assets? Okay, go to exchange. Do you trust the exchange? I don't know, but go to exchange. You cannot interact if you don't go to the exchange first. You want to see what's happening under the hood? Go to a block explorer and check. We are never integrating all of that stuff on our own platforms. Using AI agents, in this case Nebula, will allow developers to do exactly that, integrate everything within just one application.
Amazing. No, I really love that. And I think just like to summarize everything that you said. So for everybody who is looking to build great user experience, use Nebula, use smart accounts and sponsor transactions. And that way you can build great applications for Web2 users. We have one last question, I think, from Jordan. And then I also have one last question. Oh, we have more questions. Sorry. Okay, so Jordan asks, can someone use this in a token launcher platform that hopefully uses a dynamic AI bonding curve?
The answer is yes, but it needs a lot of setup because you can again actually, I'm going to spoil something. The next video I'm going to release to YouTube is going to be actually how you can create an automated token deployer directly on Telegram, and it's going to use the exact same idea that Jordan is putting here. It's going to be a token launcher platform directly within Telegram, which is connected to Nebula and allow you to deploy that. The AI bonding curve, I actually so sorry, but I don't know what that means.
Jordan, if you want to extend the question around the dynamic AI bonding curve, feel free. Because we have still some more questions from Odyssey. I feel like he will definitely use this because so many questions. Is the on-sign component compatible with Veeam?
Can you put that question on the screen for me to?
It's like, yeah, sure.
On-sign component compatible with VM.
Because like with VM, like if you're building for MiniPay, the amazing wallet on Celo with more than 5 million users and amazing user experience, when we're talking about bad user experience, we're not talking about MiniPay because it's a stablecoin wallet with like really, really amazing. Like the Opera team is incredible. So yeah, if you build for MiniPay, you have to use Veeam. And I think the question is just like, can you call Nebula with Veeam? I think like you can just like use the TypeScript SDK in when you're building that, and then you can call that. So
at the end, remember that all of these are EVM compatible blockchains with differentiations. For example, if you use a CK based blockchain, it's going to have some different twerks here and there. But as we are all working on EVM compatible blockchains, you can do it 100% with MiniPay.
Next question. I think so. Celo allows users to pay gas fees also in stable tokens, not only. Odyssey is just promoting Celo at this point. I love it. To pay gas fees with not only with the native token but also with stable coins. Is this accounted for with Nebula? I think, I don't know if you want to answer. I know thirdweb just released also a tool to like pay gas fees and stablecoins on any chain, right?
Yeah, we have.
But just to answer your question, if you use Veeam, you can just choose any kind of gas fees. And I feel like if you send for Nebula right now, like you would just pay for transaction fees, right? And then you can just choose on Celo which token you would use for that. Or no, because it still needs to be approved by a wallet. You still need to approve the transaction by a wallet with a wallet. So whatever wallet you use will still dictate the gas fee currency. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Lena, I'm so sorry, but I have another workshop right before this one, after this one. Sorry, so I need to fly. If that's okay.
You need to run. Okay, no worries. Maybe you can just answer. Will there be pricing around Nebula, or will that be open source?
That's something I'm not confident to talk about because depends a lot of internal. I'm not going to say classified, but sensitive information that I cannot answer right now. But we are going to publish the pricing charts.
Okay, perfect. Everybody just like try to use the free version right now and test it out to see, and that it is amazing, and you definitely want to pay for it. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Vasily, for like joining. That was an amazing workshop. I think this is a great template and starter kit for everybody who wants to build any kind of Telegram bots agents. So thank you so much. I will just still continue talking for 3 minutes, but you're
Thank you, everyone. Really nice to be with you today. I hope you learned something today, and please feel free to use that template. See you around. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining. And for everybody, I'm just gonna share Vasily's Twitter again, so you can just like follow him. As Vasily said, everybody who applies today will be prioritized. But in case you have not been approved by tomorrow or the day after, just text Vasily. This is his Twitter account. And then I just wanted to share what's coming up on Celo. And just for everybody, if this workshop was great and you're looking to build on Celo, make sure to join our builders chat. That's the QR code on the right side, but I will also post that and share it here. It's just look at on Telegram for Build with Celo, written all together. And then you can join our Telegram group to meet all the builders on Celo and ask all the questions. And then, of course, we want to invite you to, if you have not yet, to sign up for the Safe Agentathon. Let me also share the link here. This is a hackathon that just started this Monday, and it has, yeah, Jordan, you can just like chat under this live stream, I think, and just tag Vasily, and I think he will be I'm sure he will be happy to reply. And yeah, if you haven't yet, sign up for the Safe Agentathon. It's a prize pool of 500K. Really cool partners. Celo has a bounty. First prize 3K, second prize 2K for a DeFi. So focused on Forex, arbitrage, liquidity provision, and balancing agents. But yeah, also DCA. So everything related to decentralized finance AI is very, very welcome as a project submission for the Celo track. And then I also want to invite everybody who is excited to build, for example, if you just want to follow this tutorial and share how you build your own bot, you can also sign up with your own project, definitely for the Safe Agentathon, but even with your hackathon project, you can also sign up for Proof of Ship. It's a monthly AI agent-powered contest to reward Celo builders for showcasing their projects and to build publicly. So we ask you to build open source. You can just build, for example, this Telegram bot, and also share your progress in the Celo Firecaster channel. And yeah, so just let me share a link to that as well. And then if there is not more questions, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This was really, really great. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us on Celodev's Twitter account, or also on my Twitter account, which is this. This is me, and you can find me here. It's GigaHits. And yeah, I wish a lovely day, evening, and hacking to everybody, because I will be going back to hacking now, because I'm also taking part in some AI hackathons. And yeah, happy hacking, happy building. See you soon. See you tomorrow. We have another workshop with Gaia for a token launcher agent. So make sure to sign up for that, and don't miss that. See you tomorrow. Bye.